Welcome to Unbound American Stories, the channel where we uncover the lives of the extraordinary figures who shaped our nation, often from the shadows. These are the voices that history textbooks sometimes overlook, the rebels, thinkers, and visionaries who dared to challenge the status quo and change the course of America. Today's story is one of the most powerful of them all, the life of Zitkála-Šá, a woman who was determined to make sure no child in the future had to suffer as she had. The information in the video is based on AI-generated research and is designed to spark your curiosity. Think of it as the beginning of a conversation, not the final word. To help you with additional research, the notes to this video include citations for the sources we used. On to Zitkála-Šá. Zitkála-Šá, the Sioux woman who spoke truth to power. Washington, D.C., 1926. The air in the hearing room was thick with tension. A woman stood before a panel of white lawmakers, her voice steady but trembling with barely contained fury. "You ask why Native children die in your schools," she said. "It is because you bury them in unmarked graves and call it civilization." Her name was Zitkála-Šá, and she had come to tell the truth. 20 years earlier, she had been one of those children, torn from her mother's arms, stripped of her language, and forced into a system designed to erase her. But she had survived, and now she was here to make sure no one else had to. This is her story. The Dakota Prairie in 1876 was a land of wide skies and whispering grasses where the Yankton Sioux still lived as their ancestors had for generations. Here, on the Yankton Indian Reservation in South Dakota, a baby girl named Zitkála-Šá, Redbird, was born to Tate a Yohin Win, reaches for the wind, a full-blooded Yankton Sioux woman. Her father, a white man whose name is lost to history, had already vanished from their lives, but her mother's love was a shield. Tate I Yohin Win taught her daughter the stories of the Sioux, the songs of the prairie, and the language that carried the soul of their people. Zitkála-Šá grew up running barefoot through the tall grass, listening to the elders' tales of spirits and heroes, and learning the old ways before the white man's world closed in. But even as a child, she sensed the shadow creeping over her people. The U.S. government had already stolen millions of acres of Sioux land. The buffalo, once countless, were nearly gone. And now, the white men were coming for the children. In 1884, when Zitkála-Šá was just 8 years old, missionaries arrived at the reservation. They came with promises: education, opportunity, a better life. Her mother hesitated. She knew what these schools really meant: assimilation, erasure, the slow death of their culture. But she also knew that her daughter's future depended on learning the ways of the white world. With a heavy heart, she let Zitkála-Šá go. The moment the train crossed the Missouri River, the little girl's life changed forever. The school was called White's Indiana Manual Labor Institute, but it was a prison in disguise. The moment Zitkála-Šá arrived, her long braids, symbols of her identity, were cut short. Her name was taken from her. The teachers called her Gertrude Simmons, a name as foreign to her as the stiff, uncomfortable dresses they forced her to wear. She was forbidden to speak Lakota. If she was caught whispering it to another child, she was punished, made to scrub floors, denied meals, or locked in a closet. In her later writings, she would describe the deep humiliation of those years. "I felt like a beast in a cage," she wrote. "My spirit struggled within me, but I could not break free." The school taught her to read and write in English, to sew and cook, to recite Bible verses. But it also taught her something else. The white world feared what it did not understand, and it would do anything to destroy it. Yet even in that oppressive place, Zitkála-Šá refused to break. She excelled in her studies, mastering English so thoroughly that she would later wield it as a weapon against the very system that sought to erase her. She played the violin, wrote poetry, and dreamed of a world where her people could be free. But the school had not broken her spirit. it had only sharpened it. At 19, Zitkála-Šá left White's Institute and enrolled at Earlham College in Indiana, where she became one of the first Native American women to attend a mainstream college. She was a star student, winning oratory contests and debating white classmates who dismissed Native Americans as savages. But even here she faced racism. When she won a state oratory competition, some white students refused to shake her hand. After Earlham, she studied violin and piano at the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. Music became her refuge, a way to preserve the melodies of her people in a world that wanted to silence them. But she was not content to be just an artist. She wanted to fight. In 1900, she began publishing essays in the Atlantic Monthly, exposing the brutality of the boarding schools and the hypocrisy of the U.S. government's civilizing mission. Her words were a bombshell. For the first time, white America heard the truth, from the perspective of a Native woman who had lived through it. "I am a red apple," she wrote. "Red only on the outside, the white man's spirit has been pressed into my flesh." Her essays were later collected in American Indian Stories, 1921, a book that remains one of the most powerful accounts of Native American life ever written. In 1902, Zitkála-Šá married Raymond Talefay's Bonin, a Yankton Sioux Army captain. Their marriage was a partnership of equals. Both were fiercely committed to the fight for Native rights. A year later, they welcomed their son, Ohia, Winner, a name that symbolized their hope for the future. But the fight was not without cost. The government blacklisted Zitkála-Šá for her outspokenness, making it difficult for her and Raymond to find steady work. They moved frequently, living in poverty at times, but never wavering in their mission. In 1911, she co-founded the Society of American Indians, SAI, the first national organization run by Native Americans for Native Americans. Unlike white-led reform groups, the SAI demanded self-determination, the right of Native people to control their own lands, governments, and futures. She traveled the country, giving speeches, lobbying Congress, and shaming the U.S. government for its broken promises. She wrote editorials, organized protests, and refused to let the world forget what was being done to her people. And then, in 1913, she did something radical. She co-composed the Sundance Opera, the first Native American opera, blending Sioux melodies with Western classical music. It was a bold act of cultural defiance, a way to preserve her people's traditions in a world that wanted to erase them. By the 1920s, Zitkála-Šá was one of the most feared and respected Native activists in America. But she was not done fighting. At the time, most Native Americans were not considered U.S. citizens. They were wards of the government, denied the right to vote, own property, or even leave their reservations without permission. Zitkála-Šá saw this as the ultimate injustice. If Native people were to survive, they needed legal recognition, political power, and the right to shape their own destiny. She joined forces with other activists, including Charles Eastman, and launched a public campaign for citizenship. She wrote essays, gave speeches, and shamed lawmakers into action. And then, on June 2, 1924, it happened. President Calvin Coolidge signed the Indian Citizenship Act, granting full U.S. citizenship to all Native Americans born in the United States. It was a monumental victory, one that Zitkála-Šá had fought for nearly her entire life. But she knew the fight was far from over. In the 1920s, Zitkála-Šá turned her attention to exposing the failures of federal Indian policy. In 1928, she testified before Congress about the Merriam Report, a government study that revealed the horrific conditions in Native communities, starvation, disease, and the ongoing abuses of the boarding schools. She also fought against the Bursum Bill, 1922, which threatened to seize Pueblo lands in New Mexico. Through her relentless advocacy, the bill was defeated. Even as her health declined in the 1930s, she continued to write, speak, and organize. She worked with the General Federation of Women's Clubs to improve health care and education for Native communities. and she mentored the next generation of activists, ensuring that her fight would live on. Zitkála-Šá passed away on January 26, 1938, at the age of 61. She was buried in Arlington National Cemetery, a final irony for a woman who had spent her life fighting the U.S. government. But her story did not end with her death. Her writings inspired later activists, including Vine Deloria Jr. and Wilma Mankiller. In 1997, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Today, the Zitkála-Šá Award honors Native writers who carry on her legacy. Zitkála-Šá was a writer, a musician, an activist, and a warrior. She defied a world that wanted to erase her. She turned her pain into power, her words into weapons, and she refused to let America forget its sins. In the end, her story is not just the story of one woman. It is the story of a people who refused to die. It is the story of a nation built on stolen land and the voices that rose up to demand it be made right. And it is a story that still matters today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story. Who should we uncover next? Did we miss an important fact? Did we get something wrong? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep the flame of curiosity alive.